All right, here we are. Good morning officially. A yom yom. Every day, another day. 23 Teves. Well, we're getting up to huge fat pretty soon, huh? Okay, first part is we're not dealing with. It's a emendations to text in another place. So we start with this, groaning, anochos. The word is anochos, groaning, not crying out. Crying out is a very positive thing, but groaning, just moaning and groaning, won't do a bit of good. A groan is only a key to open the heart and eyes, so as not to sit there with folded arms. But it's just the beginning. Instead of sitting there groaning and looking down, if you're groaning about what's happening, use that as an indication that you're at a starting place to lift up and to start planning orderly work and activity. Each person wherever he can be effective. And the activity that he cites here is to campaign for bolstering the Torah, spreading Torah, and the observance of mitzvahs. One person might do this through his writing, another with his oratory, with speaking, another with his wealth, whatever means you have available. It's interesting. This is all about coming out of yourself. Groaning is, right? You're just like preoccupied with, oh my, what's happening to me. And all of this is get outside of yourself. Just slip and get outside of yourself. And of course, get outside of yourself in the way that you've been created to do, which is to increase your own and others' awareness of the Torah and awareness of Hashem and bring godliness into the world. So with that, we'll move on to how to. But before that, as always, bruchas for refuah shlema. Anybody want to bring forth some bruchas for refuah shlema?
Devor Rachel Bat Mir Tava.
Refuah shlema v'korev, yes.
Go ahead.
Yehudis Golda Bas Eliza Hana, Sivi Chaya Bas Leah Masha, Elka Rachel Bas Eliza, and Baruch Binyamin Ben Rachel Blema.
Refuah shlema v'korev mamash.
Then Tava Daniela Bas Naomi Chana.
Refuah
Bas Sarah.
shlema.
Rina Bas Rivka.
Refuah shlema v'korev.
And Levi Yitzchak Ben Elisheva.
Refuah shlema v'korev. Mamash. Lessons in Tanya. Page 181, 23 Teves. And Likutei Amorim. Here we are. I just want to remind us all that we do have a project that we started, which is to discover the particular teachings and advice that the Alter Rebbe is giving to become a Beinoni. And Elisheva has given us a Google Doc space where every one of us can just put them there as you and we discover them, either collectively or individually. The important thing is when you do put them there, note the chapter and page number so that when we come up to hopefully using them for future use, we'll know where to find them. Okay, and these are Hara's teachings or advice that the Alter Rebbe is giving to become a Beinoni. So let's start with today. Today starts in this Likutei Amorim Hebrew edition, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down over on the left. Rak. Okay, Rak. There's a problem here. The problem that the Beinoni or the forever becoming Beinoni, because it's a progress of a conditional road, a road of continually having to deal with the manifestation of negativity that appears in one's mind, consciousness. And the Beinoni, just to remind ourselves, what is the Beinoni? He or she is the one who never, ever lets those pop-ups of negativity find any home in his or her thought, speech, or action. Okay, and the Meinini needs to know that in order to do that, avoida, prevent the passing thoughts, which the word that he uses keeps doing, yehurim, the stirrings of negativity, which inevitably will rise up in the Beinini's consciousness, in order to deal with them and not get a hold of them and nurture them, but rather to push them back down. So there is the equipment that the Beinini has, which is the equipment that every Jew has, and the one that he brings to the fore right now is the following. What helps with this process is the remembrance, of the trace that is in your brain of fear and love of God, or awe and love of God, which is concealed in the right side of the heart. Just bring to mind that this rising negative, really, and remember, in general, I'm using the term negative to describe anything that's not on the side of Kedusha. I prefer to address it that way than to we're using the word sin. Anything that's on the side, sitra achra, right? That's the common expression. Anything that's on the other side, which I call the negative side, the side which is not Kedusha, will rise up in one's mind, because in one's nature is the natural animal soul. But that's not the only piece of equipment you have, thank God. You have the nefesh elokis, which the nefesh elokis is there not only to express itself, but also to rectify the nefesh bahamis. So at least when you have this, when one has this hirur, right, this little stirring of negativity, so the Alter Rebbe is advising to think about, remember that there's a trace in your brain always that never ever goes away, a trace in your consciousness of fear and love of God, which is concealed, which is concealed in the right side of the heart, and that's there for the purpose of strengthening and overcoming the shlita talara, and to dominate, overcome the evil, this evil, and this avataiva, which is causing you to desire some negative desire. That negative desire should not be the ruler and achieve dominion, even for a second, in the city, the small city. We spoke about a human being is a olam kotam, a small world, and in that small world is a city, and that city has two voices arguing for dominance over that city: the nefesh elokis and the nefesh bahamis, with its associated sitra, with its associated yetzer hara. But you have something else, the right side of your heart, and that's always there for the taking, if you will just develop the ability to look there. Take a look. Remember that it's there. Bring it up to consciousness. As you said, a rashima b'moichin, there's always a trace of it there in one's brain, in one's consciousness, so that the negativity does not have the ability. Bring that to mind, and that will naturally, because you're built in a nature that you have two souls, and the godly soul is built to overcome the stirrings of the animal soul. So that will bring that into dominance, so that the negativity doesn't have rulership in the small city. To take this negative stirrings that you have and bring them from potential into actuality. That the negativity should be enclosed in the body. Not even that the negativity should find any home at all in one's brain, to actually get involved in thinking about the evil, the negative. So there's an ability, a power that we have, which is the godly soul. Remember that you have zecher, right? Remember, that word remember, just remember you're going out of Egypt, right? Zecher l'tzias Mitzrayim. With memory, you can bring consciousness and develop the consciousness of going out of Mitzrayim. And of course, going out of Mitzrayim is the model for going out of exile and bringing Geula. Just remember that you have that and bring that to the consciousness so that the negativity doesn't have any shlita v'memshala, that doesn't have any rulership and ability to prevail, laharher chas v'sholem, that should be the predominant rumination of your mind, in one's will and one's brain. That one, first it rises up to your mind, and then you accept it, God forbid, put it into your mind, and then the danger starts. Because once it's accepted in your mind, and that becomes your viewpoint, right? The way you look through the lens of the animal soul and the Yetzer Hara, that's the beginning of Makshava. And Makshava shalat al halev, right? The brain moves over the heart, both for positive and negative. So we have the ability to stop it before it takes residence there, so that we don't use that negative power of thought to generate negative emotions and negative actions as a result of this this reflection of the evil.
How do we not be like positive bypass or spiritual bypassy?
Spiritual bypassy? What do you mean?
Like
What's
if because he's saying the emotions are in the heart and they rise into the mind to form thoughts, but we are saying a Benoni doesn't allow those thoughts space in his head.
He doesn't
Or
allow them to take any resonance there, correct? They
residence in his head.
they stir up in his mind, but he doesn't allow them to take residency there, because at this moment, what we're saying is because the Beinoni knows and remembers Zecher, he remembers that he has something else. And in remembrance of that allows him to reach out and grasp that something else, which is the love and fear that's resident in his heart, the love and fear of Hashem, and use that to drive out the hear-her so that it doesn't become resident. Okay? That's what he's saying. So that is, he has the equipment to drive out hara, the evil, ha'olam e'elah, which rises up automatically. It will. That's our nature, right? We have a godly nature and we have an animal nature. And the first thing, remember in the first chapter of Tanya, I think it's first, maybe second, the first thing that the Alter Rebbe describes, well, at least in order, the first thing that the Alter Rebbe describes is the animal soul, and then the godly soul. Because the animal soul is the first soul that enters into us, because that gives us our life. We're not alive without the animal soul. We're animal and animus. We have no life without the animal soul, meaning the physical life. We have no keli. We have no vessel to contain the godly soul without the animal soul. So an animal soul is the second soul, and as you saw, nefesh hashenis b'Yisrael. That's how he introduces the animal soul in the first part of Tanya, first few chapters. The second soul is the godly soul. Nefesh hasheni b'Yisrael, who is the nefesh elokis. So one has to remember that you have that waiting. That powerhouse is waiting, and that can drive out the evil from the left side of the heart and from the brain. As soon as that negative hirhur, that negative stirring rises, as soon as it rises up into one's brain, the Beinoni, the wannabe Beinoni, the godly person that we all want to become, the expression of Elokus that we want to be as close to 100% active in our thought, speech, and action. So that person who wants to live like that, the godly life, pushes this hirhur away, b'shtei yadayim, with two hands. Umasiach daito, right, with two hands. The right side love, the left side gevura, right, pushes the woman away. No, I'm not going to get a hold of this at all. Umasiach daito miyad. We have the ability. The first thing is, as he said, to know. Let it rise up. When we started this, if this helps the Roshimoi, there's a Roshimoi in your brain, a trace of the knowledge that you have the ability to do this avodah. I mean, that's the first thing. If you didn't think that, if you didn't know that you could do it, then why bother? You know, if it's a game with zero sum, why play the game? It isn't a zero sum game. It's a game. I'm using the word game, lightly here. It's an activity. It's a way of living that we have been given to the power to overcome the negativity. So the first technique, if you will, if you wanted to, we're putting our list of techniques together, is the reflective ability. Remember, we talked about davening earlier, that was an eis rotzon, time of willfulness up above, a time of openness up above, when the godliness is, when we are able to touch godliness much more easily because there's open space for it. So we've had that, we've davened. Reflect upon that. Reflect upon, that's the first thing he says. Reflect on the roshimoy b'moichin, the trace that exists in your brain of the positive, of the godly soul. And use that to push away b'shtei yadayim, back inside the Tanya, push inside with umesiach daitoi, and turn your mind away from that miyad shenizkar, as soon as you remember and observe that there's something going on here that you don't want to be going on in your little city. As soon as you remember that, shehu hi hara, what's that something? That's the stirrings of evil, negativity. And you have the ability not to accept that willingly. Even the stirring, you can get rid of that. There'll be some trace, but that it should, there are degrees in which it's stirring. It starts bubbling up, and then it bubbles up. I'm thinking in my own mind of effervescence, soda. You open the soda bottle and they start to bubble. Close the top, and then it won't bubble up and spill over. So you have the ability to turn that off. Even the beginnings of the bubbling can be turned off. Biratzon, if you exercise your ratzon and your will, your real will, the you that's really you is the godly you. So bring that to mind. Now you can't always do this, but if you know that you can, at least, and if that's the beginning of taking the moment to contemplate that and utilize that strength. And you have the ability to stop the bubbling up even at the beginning, and how much more so to stop it so it doesn't get lodged in your das, because das, das, we've learned this in other places, das is the gateway to the emotions. So once it gets, either the Hihurim of Kedusha or the Hihurim of the other side, we shouldn't have that experience. Once it gets lodged in das, then it gets very easy to both ways, to inform the midos with the positive or to inform the midos with the negative. And informing with the negative is chas v'sholom, or you feel the davar boy. And certainly, it's easy, if you utilize this capability that you have, not only will it not get lodged in your thought and your das and your midos, but also in your speech, and you won't be speaking anything on the side of negativity. Because you should know that anyone who willingly opens his will and accepts the stirrings of the negative is called a rasha, at that moment. The habenini, and this is a underline, habenini eina rasha afilu sha'achas la'olim. A benini is not ever a rasha, even for one moment, because he stops or she stops the process at the beginning. Not only in terms of, God forbid, having thoughts or speech or deed of things which are Isser al pi Torah, the 365s, negatives, but also between in personal relationship between Olam and Chavera. As soon as there rises up from the heart to the brain, ezotina, any animosity, vesina, or any hatred, chas v'sholom, to another person, or ezakina, or jealousy, or kas, or anger, or kapeda, or any harsh judgment, with Demeha or anything like this in human relationships. The Beinoni, or the Beinoni to be, the wannabe Beinoni, in the Mekabelin Klal b'Moicha b'Tzon, it never allows these things, that this whole list of things that we just had, to enter into his brain and his will. The Adarabba, HaMoyech shalat u'moishel beruach shebaliboy. So this is the other side. The brain rules and has dominion over the ruach shebaliboy, of the negative. Lastly, heptech mamish, to do the opposite. To conduct oneself with your friend, whom you happen to be angry with or jealous of, or all the other things we listed up. He uses that word chavera, because kol Yisrael chaverim b'zelezeh, right? And it's a Maimer Chazal. All Jewish people are chaverim zelezeh. We're all friends. We're chaber. The word chaber, or chiber, joined. We're all joined at the hip being the nefesh elokis. We're all joined. We are one people with one God. And all the negativity is just superficial disturbance, needs to be just moved away like a cloud that covers the sun. And conduct oneself with the midas chesed, with the attribute of kindness, the chibur yisera medaisloi, and he displays an extra measure of love, an extra measure. The fact that you are aroused to anger indicates that you've got some work to do, right? And the work is, just like anger is an extreme, so go to an extreme on the other side, the extreme of chesed, and be overweighted in terms of displaying extra measure of love. Lispoil mimenu ad kotza ha'acharon, to tolerate up to the last extent. In other words, to just not let that anger, it's gonna, it's inside of you, it's starting to bubble, but push it down, because you know that we are all one, and whatever's going on with another person, I'll have compassion on, right? I won't have anger. The anger may have been triggered, but I'm a consciously continually awakening myself Jew, and I'm continually awakening the side of the nefesh elokis, and therefore, at least I'll tolerate it. I won't get angry with it. Ad kotza ha'acharon, he says, to the greatest extent, to the furthest extreme, I'll put up with it, and on the contrary, I'll answer it with kindness and compassion. V'lei lichas, and not get angry, chas v'sholem. V'gam shlei lishta lo yepoilei chas v'sholem. And even if you get, I certainly won't, I won't get to the point of wanting to pay him back. He's doing something to anger me, I'll anger him. I'll just, get right back in his face. Ela adarab, on the contrary, ligmor lachayovim toivos. This expression is to bestow goodness on those who offended you. Right? Ligmor, to bestow lachayovim, to those who bothered you, toivos, goodness, to extend goodness to those who offended you. The Mishkotze b'Zohar, as the Zohar writes, Lilmed ma Yosef im Achiv, to learn from Yosef and his brothers. I mean, his brothers wanted to kill him. His brothers sold him into slavery, and he accepts them. He accepts them with love, and not only accepts them with love, he tells them that don't even have a passing thought of this as a negative, because this is all hashgacha process. This is all God's hand. And with that, he reveals a complete openness and love, and bestows that love and kindness on them, regardless of whatever they did to him, because it's all from Hashem. And that's today's talk. All right, any questions? Comments?
I have a comment.
Wait a minute. Aviva, your hand is up.
Sorry.
No one
Yeah, hi,
else's hand
thank
is
you.
up.
So I find it very confusing, this idea of the moment to moment business. Like one moment I'm Russia and Well, let's say I'm going along the Benoni track and something comes up, and in
Yeah.
that moment I'm a Russia, and
Right.
I don't know. I mean, are we talking about real time? I mean, I don't know. It's confusing to me.
What do you
You
mean? Your question's confusing me.
It's like,
Let me
does
just say
one
this.
move back and forth in the
let me say
process
that.
of
Yeah.
becoming a Benoni between
Yes.
Russia Benoni in those
Yes.
moments?
You have Benini moments and you have Russian moments. But when you are a Benini, you no longer have Russian moments. What's a Russian moment? A Russian moment means that whatever negative, I'm using the word as I always do, not the side of Kedusha,
Okay.
stirs in you, it will always stir in the Benini. That's the Yehurim. He will always have stirrings, but he or she will have reached the point of discipline to be a point where it never enters into your mind anymore to think about it in a manner of thinking about doing it, certainly not to speak about it, not to do it. When you are there all the time, being able to take those stirrings and block them so they don't reach your machshava dibra meiser, then you are a Benini. When you're not, then you're like most of us, which is the category of Russia v'toivlai. The evil gets a hold of me once in a while. That's Rishus. But most of the time, I'm expressing my godly soul. But every once in a while, halavai is this, right? Halavai Russia v'toivlai, but which should be a Russia with mostly good, right? But that's the path most of it. We're all of us who are sitting here today at this class, at this whatever discussion, are people who want to be and are trying to be expressions of godliness that fulfill our prepared purpose in bringing the Geula to this world and bring godliness down into this world. That's why we're here. We have Russia moments. To that extent, you have Russia moments, meaning you're not behaving that way. That's called a Russia v'toivlai. When you've passed that, and the stirrings of anything negative don't ever get lodged in you to express themselves in thought, speech, and action, then you are a Benini. Does that help you?
It's helpful, but I just want to make sure that I understand it. Like, you bounce.
If you're bouncing, meaning sometimes you're doing stuff that's not on the side of Kedusha, then you're a Russia v'toivlai. If you never bounce, never get in the grips of those stirrings, never, then you're a Benini.
But you
But
still
they
have the
pass
stirring.
through your head because
They pass
that's
through
where
your
you're
head, but
made,
yes,
and then you grab them.
the Benini, it passes through his head, but the Benini never grabs onto them. The
Okay.
Russia v'toivlai it passes through his or her head, and he does or she does grab onto them.
Okay.
Okay? Rivka, your hand's up.
Thank you. Hi. I think this is a really crucial chapter in Tanya, and it gives us a guide post how to deal with everything with life in the sense that we know we're given.
With this, I want to
Uh-huh.
put in the yellow.
Razor, no.
Sorry.
No, you're just.
I did want to ask.
Wait a minute,
I'm sorry, I
Rivka,
didn't
wait a minute,
realize.
hold on. Rivka's in the middle of speaking.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We're given really important information here that we have the ability that just knowing that it's possible that we're not subject to those whims and desires and inclinations.
Or we don't need to be subject to them. We have the capability not to be subject to
exactly.
them. Yeah.
Right. That and it's within our own power. It's not it's not impossible. It's like
very possible. It's very possible. Halavai Benini. It's within the ability of every Jew to become a Benini.
Yeah. Or for whatever moment, but that it's up to us. It's an exercise that we have to do.
It's up to us. Yes.
And it's very, very possible. And it's very, and he's giving us directions. It's not like a theoretical.
Yeah, that's why I said this whole section. Remember, this is just the first chapter on the Beinoni. This is chapter and the Beinoni. We've just started describing the Beinoni. The whole book is called Sefer Shel Beinoni. And in that book, he gives us one advice after advice after advice, counsel, meditations, contemplations. And we are, as we said earlier, we're trying to, this year, trying to get them annotated in this in our Google Docs, so we can maybe publish a list, if not for the public, at least for ourselves, to be able to see all the things that we can, all the ammunition we have, all the capability we have, and to utilize them. And it's an instruction book. It's an instruction book in how to become a Beinoni.
And there's a hierarchy at which the Rebbe sets out about stirrings in the heart, ideas in the mind, and then this idea of speaking and acting, and
on the three garments of the soul.
To know that we really are, and we can be, it's possible to be in control of not only our actions and our speech, but even our thoughts, even if it's just that response to whatever those thoughts are, even if the thought, we can't control the initial risings of these thoughts.
Yep.
I think it's also about forming habits.
Absolutely.
That you start and you do it once in a while, and you can do it easier the next time. It's, you can talk
about. It's a practice. This is a practice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Elisheva, you're up.
Yeah, I guess my comment was before when he said that any thought that comes into your heart, you don't even allow
into your mind.
Into your mind from your heart. So it rises up from your heart into your mind. And with the emotional work that we're doing nowadays, we are giving our heart space, and we are giving our heart
right. But it's a very important point you're saying. You got to know which side of your heart you're giving space to. Because if you just say, let your heart guide you, it's definitely not enough, because there are two sides of the heart. So you've got to make sure that you're talking about, let the right side of your heart guide you, not the left side. Because people have gotten in trouble, lots of trouble, by just letting their heart take them where they want it to go. So just be careful with the language, that's all.
Well, okay, what's the heart side and what's the left side? What's the right and what's the left?
The right side is the Nefesh Elokis, the left side is the Nefesh Bahamis.
Okay.
That he told us in the earlier.
But also, I thought, like, as you continue teaching the chapter, by the end, the resolve, for me, it resolved a little bit, because when you start having the thoughts of anger at your friend, and you remember that your friend is just Hashem's messenger to trigger you so that you can work on whatever's hurting you, then you don't hold it against your friend at all. You have no anger. You have no jealousy.
That's correct.
So that
then you're utilizing the right side of your heart.
And then there's no room for thinking poor thoughts about your friend, and you're able to act compassionately and even kindly towards him, like Yosef with his brothers.
Exactly.
You have to. Okay.
Correct. When the right side of your heart dominates the left side of your heart. Yeah. And eventually, maybe not extinguishes. Remember, the extinguishing is the tzaddik, but the right side prevails. That's the best word. Prevails over the left side of your heart. Constantly, all the time. That's a Beinoni.
But I think that's the road to tzaddik. When it prevails so much, and you're habituated in that way, then eventually the thoughts don't even arise, because you're so used to, and then
it can be, sure. I mean, that is the road, and it could be that you could reach that destination called tzaddik. That is the road. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Hello?
Okay, Sarah, wait a minute. Sarah has her hand up. Rosa, I'm punishing you because your hand's not up. But no, you'll be next. But Sarah's been up for a long time. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning. So I just wanted to clarify, the technique of today is the pushing away of the thought. And there's two thoughts that came up with after discussing Yosef, and I think Elisheva, you gave a really more practical example of when something offensive comes towards us, and our initial reaction would be to have a negative response or reaction, to think about how that is somehow Hashem giving us a path towards enlightenment, even if it's something that's painful for us to experience. So the first thing I thought about was, what if it's like a really extreme case where if Yosef, like in the case of Yosef, or it's just if there's violence being perpetrated, like I'm assuming if a tzaddik is undergoing that experience, maybe he's even not having a negative feeling or thought. Maybe he's thinking the whole time, this is from Hashem. That's pretty much what we're saying, right?
Correct. Right. It's all from Hashem. That's the story of Yosef. It's Hashem who put me here in Egypt. Hashem did all of those predecessor activities, which looked really bad, were for the result of me being able to save you and to save everybody. And Hashem guided it every step of the way. And that is what's happening all the time by all of us. And that's the attitude that will help us to prevent being angry and maybe even being always kind and helpful to everybody, no matter what they're showing us. Yes.
And I'm also, and I guess the process is in the moment. Yosef, in retrospect, when he sees his brother, he says how this all is because how step by step, why this was all for the good. But for us in the moment, we may not know why it's all good, but we still have to, I guess maybe there's like a phrase or some type of mantra we could say. I guess you could say it's from Hashem in your head, in our heads somehow.
Right. First of all, there's no answer to why, so we don't even ask the question. But we do have knowledge. We know that it is for the good. That's the fact. And if we know that, especially if it's das, it's really internalized, then we'll have, it's called eyes of das. That's the expression translated in Hebrew, not in English. We'll have Eine Das, we'll have eyes of Das, to know that nothing happens or everything happens only from Hashem. Let me give a little time to Rosa, thank you. Rosa, what do you want to pipe on? Say something? Well, I hope I didn't drive her away. Okay, maybe I did.
I think what we're edging toward is bitachon. What we're really edging toward.
Bitachon, absolutely. Trust. Trust is different from emunah, right? Absolute trust that this is from Hashem, and it always is. That's a big madrega, I think, at least for me. All right. Anyone else? We are over time. Any other comments before someone gives us a nice ubechein? Therefore.
No, you can do it. You're in control if you want to be.
That's it. Know that you have the power to be in control if you want to be. Well said. Okay. See you tomorrow.
Take care. Thank you.